If you've ever spent time with a baby, you definitely know the scene. You turn your back for just 1 second and suddenly, your car keys, the TV remote, or even their own foot is heading straight for their mouth. And yeah, it can look a little alarming, right? But it turns out there's some incredible science behind this universal baby behavior. So let's dive in and find out what's really going on.
So what is the deal here? Why does it seem like every single object a baby can get their hands on is destined for a drool-covered taste test? Well, it turns out this isn't some random habit at all. It's actually a fundamental and really important part of how they learn and grow.
And if you've ever found yourself worrying about it, trust me, you are not alone. This isn't just your baby. It's this fascinating, universal experience that connects parents and caregivers all over the world. And it's a completely predictable and vital part of their development.
And while it might seem like their main goal is to drive you a little crazy, this behavior is so common it actually has a name, mouthing. It's not just normal, it's a crucial sign that your baby is actively exploring their world. So, why the mouth? Of all things, why is that their go-to tool? Well, it turns out that for a baby, the mouth is basically a sensory superpower. At its core, mouthing is just a completely normal and essential stage of development. You can think of it as their very first research project, where all the lab equipment is their lips, their tongue, and their gums. And this is where it gets really fascinating. A baby's mouth has more nerve endings than any other part of their body. I mean, it's not even close. While their little hands are still figuring out fine motor skills, their mouth is already working like a high-resolution scanner, learning about texture, temperature, and shape in incredible detail. And this isn't just about feeling things. Every single object that goes into their mouth is actively helping to build their brain, one little bite-sized piece of information at a time. Just look at all the work that's getting done here. It's building that critical hand-eye-mouth coordination. It's strengthening the exact muscles they'll need for talking and eating later on. It's even helping to desensitize their gag reflex, which is a huge deal when they start eating solid foods. And get this, it's also a way for their immune system to get a safe, early introduction to the world. All of this is a perfect example of what experts call the sensory motor stage. It sounds complicated, but it just means learning about the world through senses and movement. Mouthing is this stage in action, a perfect fusion of sensing and moving to understand everything around them. Now, a lot of people assume that all this chewing is just about teething. And look, that's definitely part of the story, but it is not the whole picture. And it's really important to understand the difference. You know, this whole mouthing thing actually follows a pretty predictable timeline. It starts with simple reflexes, then becomes way more intentional around 3 to 6 months. The peak time for all this oral exploration is usually between 6 and 12 months. And after that, as their hands get more skillful, the behavior naturally starts to fade. Now, that peak mouthing period often happens at the exact same time as teething, which is exactly why they're so often confused. But they are driven by two very, very different motivations. Okay, so here's the key difference. It all comes down to motivation. Mouthing is about seeking information, while teething is about seeking relief. A baby who's mouthing is usually curious and pretty content. But a teething baby, they're often irritable, they might have red, swollen gums, and you'll notice they're applying firm, consistent pressure to soothe that pain. So understanding the why is great, and it's definitely reassuring. But of course, the most important job for any of us is making sure all this exploration happens safely. So let's talk about how to create a safe environment for them. This is the #1 concern for pretty much everyone, and for good reason. But the good news is, there's a surprisingly simple way to check almost any object. It's called the toilet paper roll test. And it's exactly what it sounds like. If an object is small enough to pass all the way through an empty toilet paper roll, it's too small for a baby to play with unsupervised. It is an easy, super effective rule of thumb to keep in mind. Creating a safe zone is really just about a few simple habits. First, get down on your hands and knees and see the world from their perspective. You'll be amazed at what you find down there. Second, provide plenty of safe, age-appropriate toys. And third, just clean those toys and surfaces regularly to keep the germ exposure totally manageable. So, the next time you see your little one putting yet another object in their mouth, try to see it for what it truly is, a remarkable, powerful act of learning and growth. This quote just nails it, doesn't it? What looks like a simple, messy habit is actually a high-tech data-gathering mission. It's the foundation for speech, for eating, and for understanding the physical world. It's a powerful reminder that behind every one of those small baby actions, a giant leap in development is happening.